Hey everyone, welcome to Satanix Reviews. This is where I'll be reviewing movies, shows, and video games. Today I'll start with Pokémon Black and White. Now I wanted to make this my first review because this was one of the first video game franchises I ever played. Ever since my first Pokémon game, Pokémon Blue, I have been really into these games. I love the idea of being able to catch creatures just to train them and go up against other creatures. Of course, this series is still very popular nowadays, but it was difficult to determine which would be the best for me to discuss first. Then I started seeing a lot of people on other websites stating their love towards Pokemon Black and White, and sometimes even more love for Black 2 and White 2. I'll get to those sequels in a future video, so I'll review the originals instead. Firstly, I absolutely love the music in this game. You'll be hearing me compliment that a lot when I talk about games like this. Of course, we have our typical comfy, cozy tracks like Accumula Town. But there's also the atmospheric tracks like these. However, easily my favorite tracks in this game belong to the battle themes, including the hectic and epic Team Plasma Grunt battle theme, the catchy rival battle theme, the bombastic gym leader battle theme, the high energy gym leader final Pokemon theme, the Crom and Reshiram's battle theme, and lest we forget, N's final battle theme. These tracks are all great. Sure, I have to remind myself of some of the tracks, but it's mainly because I just listened to those tracks I just provided. It's still an overall great OST. Next, I'll be discussing the graphics. I admit it was pretty impressive to see the sprites fully animated for the first time. Every single Pokemon in this game has some sort of animation, and I mean every single one. If you try bringing in any Pokemon from any previous region, they'll have their own unique animation. You can tell this game has the highest production value, considering how many times they use 3D graphics mixed in with the 2D graphics. However, I feel like that came with a price. I won't dare say the game looks bad. It looks great, but you'll start to notice a few times that can make things harder to see. I don't know, I noticed while replaying the game that it can be difficult to see what you're looking at sometimes. I think they made some sprites look a little too pixely. I get it that this is a difficult thing to do considering that these games weren't originally supposed to be this ambitious in terms of visuals. But I feel like Hard Gold and Soul Silver looked a lot more clean than this. Speaking of which, I love darker colors, but I really just prefer Hard Gold and Soul Silver's color scheme. Again, this game doesn't look bad, but I still prefer the look of Gen 4's games. Still, I can't deny this game was visually ambitious, and I have to thank it for looking as good as it did. Next, the Pokemon themselves. Some of the designs in this game are pretty good. The legendary Pokemon obviously look good, but the designs of some of the regular Pokemon look good as well. Zoroark has a cool design, and I like its ability to disguise itself as one of its team's other Pokemon. Bisharp just looks awesome, with its razor-sharp blades and metallic exterior. Swaddle and its family tree, pun possibly intended, is a clever idea to make a bug-leaf hybrid, and I've really grown to love Krokorok and Crocodile as these criminal-looking crocodile Pokemon. And once you've got one with Moxie ability, which makes it stronger after every opponent it defeats, consider that opponent of yours demolished, because your Sand Crocodile is just getting stronger with every foe it vanquishes. However, There's one big problem that even people who love this game admit. You can only use these new Pokemon for the game. This would be fixed in the sequels, and granted, you can find Pokemon from other regions eventually, but that's not until after you've beaten the main story. I wouldn't have a problem with this if it weren't for the fact that, one, some Pokemon just don't have very good designs, like Stunfisk, Trubbish, and Vullaby, which show that the creators just probably didn't have enough time for all of these designs. And two, some Pokemon take way too long to evolve. Take Rufflet, for example. You can find this Pokemon at roughly level 34. Sounds like it'll evolve soon, right? Well, it doesn't evolve until level 54. And what levels are the Elite Four's Pokemon at? Around level 50. It also doesn't help that some Pokemon heavily rely on stones in order to evolve. I wouldn't have a problem with this if it weren't for the fact that some of these Pokemon feel kind of useless sometimes. Their movesets just feel weak, and getting to the better moves can really take a while. Even if you do have the stones right away, you probably don't want to evolve them just yet. This was a major problem in a lot of these earlier Pokemon games. If you evolve your Pokemon with a stone, they stop learning new moves. This just forces you to wait until they've learned all the moves you want them to learn, and then use the stone to make them stronger. So this game pretty much forces you to grind, which I know is common for RPGs, but I didn't have much of a problem with this in the other Pokemon games until maybe a few times in previous games. Also, I originally didn't have this problem in this game up until the Elite Four. My team did fine against the last gym leader, but the Elite Four, they absolutely destroyed me due to my team being underleveled. This forced me to grind on Victory Road for literally hours, and my total playtime became 60 hours until I finally beat it. You want to know the funny thing about this? The segment after the Elite Four? It's not that hard. Yes, the part after the Elite Four isn't actually that bad. Firstly, it lets you heal your Pokemon before the finale. Secondly, there's a PC to switch up your team. Third, you don't have to reset the Elite Four's battles if you lose. This part wasn't that bad for me on replay, so it was like a breath of fresh air. With that said, the Elite Four does have a good roster, and I like that this is the first Pokemon game that allows you to fight the Elite Four in any order you want. But it's forcing you to fight them without any chance of healing if you didn't bring any items with you. Okay, with that out of the way, let me talk about story and characters. I think we can all agree that Gen 5 had the best plot out of any Pokemon entry. It starts out like any other Pokemon game, until Team Plasma shows up and makes everything darker and more intense. One of the first scenes of these grunts is kicking an innocent Pokemon to get its dream energy. What a bunch of jerks! Of course, the stars of the show here are the two characters, N and Getsus. N is the more in-depth antagonist, wanting to fix the world to help the Pokemon he grew up with live in a better environment. Sure, he isn't always the nicest guy, but you can tell he's not as bad as his father, Getsus, the cruelest of the team. I mean, this guy is an absolute monster. He manipulates people and claims he's doing this to help mankind and Pokemon alike, when really he's just doing this because he's evil. And no, that's not a spoiler, because it's pretty obvious that's what he's after. This was the first villainous team that felt straight up serious from beginning to end, while still being intimidating as hell. Sure, the other teams can be taken seriously and can be a little intimidating, but these guys can be really threatening. I just love villains who are evil for the sake of being evil, so every moment of these guys being intense is always welcome for me. Luckily, there are some likable characters to balance things out, though. So you can tell the focus isn't just on the villains. I don't think this game's story would have been as good had it prioritized so much on making the villains interesting to the point of forgetting to make characters you want to see make it out through these bad situations. Granted, I don't find that all of the characters stand out, but I really like characters like Bianca and Professor Juniper. Bianca probably is the character I feel the most sorry for. The game always has her pick the starter that's weaker to yours, so hearing about how she feels about losing against trainers like you does work. Gym leaders like Skyla, Elisa, and the trio that make up the first gym certainly make memorable designs, but you don't see them all that much. Granted, if Silent is anything like he was in the anime, I'm counting my blessings now. So this game does have strengths and weaknesses, but do I recommend it? Sure. I do suggest you check this game out if you're a Pokemon fan. However, I don't recommend this as the first one you play if you're trying to get into the series. You'll need to be experienced with the other games to get a good idea of how this game is going to be. This isn't the hardest entry. I certainly think this is a lot easier than Blue and Red, but it's still pretty hard for a Pokemon game. I feel like if this game had more variety with the Pokemon you can catch, or at the very least made the ones you can catch have quicker methods of getting better moves or faster evolutions, this game would be a lot better. As is, I do still love this game. Not as much as some other Pokemon games before and after, but I still have a fun time. Overall, I'd give this game an 8 out of 10. A great game, and I'm pretty nostalgic for it. But it's got a few things holding me back from finding it my favorite like other people do.